Delicious. Hi, I'm Tom Spellman with Dave Wilson Nursery, and this morning we're going to walk around the nursery a little bit, and I want to talk a little bit about backyard orchard culture. I think one of the most important things to understand when it comes to backyard orchard culture is it's not commercial orchard culture. In fact, it's about as different as it could possibly be. A great example, my first example, look at this row of trees. This is a walnut orchard here at Dave Wilson Nursery. We use it for seed stock and budwood. I could land a plane in this row. Space is all in here for one reason. The space is all here for equipment needs. If you don't need to run a John Deere tractor through your backyard, you don't need to space your trees like a commercial orchardist. So if I was a commercial grower of walnuts here in the San Joaquin Valley, I would absolutely require that much space in my orchard. I need 20-foot roadways. I need 20 feet in between my trees. I need to be able to get large equipment in, tractors, trucks, a crew of people, harvesting equipment. All that needs access. All that needs to be able to maneuver around freely through the orchard. If I'm a backyard grower, it's a completely different situation. The only thing I need space for is myself, or maybe a small piece of garden equipment. I don't need 20-foot roadways. I don't need 20 feet or 18 feet or 16 feet in between trees. All I need is enough room for me. I don't have a commercial expectation of my harvest. I don't need hundreds and hundreds of pounds of fruit per tree. I just need enough for myself and my family. So small trees come into play. I don't need to grow a 20-foot fruit tree. I don't have a commercial expectation. I think another really important concept to take into consideration is what's important to a commercial grower isn't always important to a backyard grower. For example, if I'm a grower of Asian pears, this is a beautiful piece of fruit. The size is nice. It's not too big. It's not too small. It's perfect. It's blemish-free. It's just freshly harvested off the tree, and it has eye appeal. Well, the way commercial fruit is sold in the market is by eye appeal. When you go to the market, you don't taste the fruit in the market, you don't smell the fruit in the market, you look at it. And if it looks good, you buy it. Now, under backyard conditions, I'm not necessarily concerned with the same aspects in a piece of fruit. I like a perfect piece of fruit, but if it has a blemish, I don't care. If it has a little split, I don't care. If it has seeds, that doesn't bother me. All I really want is flavor. If it tastes good, I know I'm getting what I want out of my backyard trees. And if I have to spit out a couple of seeds or cut out a worm occasionally, it's not really that big an issue to me. I don't have to have perfect fruit, I just have to have flavor. Another important backyard concept is tree size control. We're here in our newly planted backyard orchard style project that's been in now for about 8 months. And when we put this project in, our little Santa Rosa plum here was stubbed back to about knee high. We came in and did a early summer pruning on it where we cut it back here to about 30 inches. So now it's September and now the tree's grown out again. So now it's back up to over 6 feet tall. So as a young tree, I can come in now and check this again. I may not need to do any winter pruning on this tree, but I can come in now and choose a size that I want for almost a predetermined height on this tree. I can allow it to flush out one more time and that's going to be my final structure. So by this time next year, this tree will be as big as I'll ever let it get. So we can come in now about maybe 18 inches above our last cut and start to take out a little wood. Always kind of pruning so that our next flush of growth is going to come outwards. So we're not going to prune every branch, we're going to prune the major branches. We're just going to take this growth back, just check this growth so that we have a nice controlled size, so that we have an easy to manage small tree. I may come back in the winter and do a little bit of detail work on it. I may thin it out a little bit. I may open up the center a little bit, but I'm not taking that into consideration now. Really, all I'm taking into consideration now is just where my cuts are going to be so that my next flush of growth is going to give me that finished size and finished shape. So that's really all I'm going to do now. So there are really 3 main important considerations to backyard orchard culture, and they're all pretty simple and common sense. Number 1, control tree size so it's manageable for you. And there's no standard for that. It's whatever is manageable for you. For me, I like that 7.5 foot tree because I can reach it from the ground. If you want something a little larger, you want a 10-foot tree, you want a 12-foot tree, and that's manageable for you, that's fine. For me, I want it all my work to be able to be done from the ground. So that's probably the most important concept. Control tree size so it's manageable for you. Number 2, You don't want to think like a commercial grower. A commercial grower wants all his fruit to ripen at once. They want to come through with their trucks and their equipment and their people and pick the entire orchard and take the fruit to market. That's the last thing you want as a backyard grower. You don't want a lot of fruit at any one given time. You want a little bit of fruit all the time. So you're going to grow multiple varieties in the same space a commercial grower would grow one tree. You're going to grow 3 or 4 or 5, and they're going to be successive ripening varieties, so you can pick over an extended season. 3 or 4 peach varieties, May Pride, an Eva's Pride, Mid Pride, and an August Pride. There's 4 months worth of peaches. Put the 4 trees together in the place of one standard size orchard tree, keep it size controlled. Every month for 3 or 4 months you've got 75, 100, 125 peaches that you can enjoy. So control tree size, grow successive ripening varieties, and also really important, grow what you like, grow what you're going to use, grow things that you can work into your daily culinary lifestyle, things that you'll use in the kitchen, things that your kids enjoy, things that your neighbors enjoy, because you'll probably still have plenty of fruit to share, even growing under controlled conditions like that. So control tree size, grow successive ripening varieties, grow what you like and what you'll use. Another really important concept to understanding backyard orchard culture is know your microclimate. And I'm not talking about your USDA zone or your sunset zone. I'm talking about your individual piece of property. You want to understand everything about the weather conditions on your piece of property. Understand where your hot spots are and where your cold spots are. Understand where your wet spots are in the soil, where the heavy soil is, where the sandy soil is, where the dry soil is. Understand where you have a frost sheltered area, where you have wind sheltered areas. Once you know your individual microclimate, then you know what you can put in what particular place. If you have an area that is windy and cold and stays too wet, you're certainly not going to plant a subtropical like a papaya or a mango in that spot. If you have an area that is dry and hot, there's your perfect spot for pomegranates or jujubes. If you have an area that stays wet, say close to a lawn where the water ends up, then you want to make sure that you're planting a tree on a rootstock that's adaptable to heavy wet soil. So understand your particular microclimate. Know everything about your piece of property. Once you know that, then you can intelligently start to put trees out and place them in an environment where they're going to be able to live and thrive for many, many years. Along with understanding your microclimate, once you know where you can put a pomegranate and where you can put a citrus and where you can put a plum tree on citation rootstock, then you really want to understand rootstock. Don't use rootstocks because they're semi-dwarfing or standard. Don't use rootstocks for size control. It really doesn't matter what rootstock a tree's grafted onto, whether it's a semi-dwarf or a standard. This peach tree on citation, semi-dwarf, or on Nemagard standard, you're looking at a tree that's going to be 15 feet as a semi-dwarf, 20 feet plus as a standard. Well, that's still too big for me. I still am not going to consider that rootstock for size control. I want that rootstock for its adaptability to my particular soil condition and my geographic area. So if I have a heavy wet soil, I'm obviously going to plant that peach tree on citation. If I have a sandy, fast draining soil, I'm going to put it in a Nemagard. And then I'm going to determine the size of the tree. I'm not going to allow the rootstock to determine the size of the tree. I'm going to determine that size by pruning. So summer pruning for size control, a little bit of winter pruning for detail, and I'm going to choose a size that works for me and keep the tree controlled to that size indefinitely. Now you always have options. Here's a great option if you have a really heavy wet soil that doesn't drain well. Just create a small raised bed. You can build a raised bed out of anything you want. You want to use brick, block, railroad ties, riverbed boulders, or just a simple 2x12 frame. Anything you can do to get the root system 8 to 12 to 14 or 16 inches up above grade is going to make a huge difference in how these trees perform. Cherries typically don't like wet, heavy soil, but just giving them this little 12-inch raised bed will make all the difference in the world in how the root systems function. The water has an opportunity to get away from the root crown. The soil and the root system will be able to breathe and oxygenate well. If I planted this tree at grade and it was a wet, heavy soil, this cherry is probably good for a year to 3 years and it's going to be gone. In just a simple raised bed situation like this, it's going to live a long, healthy life. No home orchard project is going to be complete without some sort of a problem arising from time to time. Maybe you have an insect problem, maybe you have a disease problem, something that you can't really properly identify. We get emails like this all the time. Our Facebook page has questions every day. You know, I have black spots on my walnuts. I have browning on the foliage of my cherry. What's my problem? Well, it's almost impossible to determine what your problem is through a Facebook page or an internet photo. So here's what you need to do. If you have a problem that you can't identify and you feel that there's a need to treat for that problem, you want to take a sample down to a local retail nursery, somebody that you trust, somebody that you have faith in that will be able to help you out with a problem, and let them identify it for you. But don't just drag a tree branch down there or a handful of leaves or some infected fruit. Make sure to do one thing, and the retail nurserymen that watch this segment will shake my hand for this. Seal up your sample. Get yourself a nice Ziploc baggie. Select some average samples on the tree. There's a cherry problem. I don't really know what that cherry problem is. So 1 leaf, 2 leaf, 3 leaves in the bag. Seal it up. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till next week. Take it right down to a local retail nursery and show the nursery professional what your problem is. They'll take out a loop or a lens or just, you know, be able to take a look at that leaf and tell you, oh, okay, this is black spot, or this is some sort of a fungus problem or an insect issue. They'll identify your problem and they'll recommend the proper product to treat for it. And oftentimes you don't need to use a chemical spray or a pesticide. If it's a crawling insect like scale or mealybug or aphis, sometimes you can just take your hose and a high pressure nozzle and just blast it off the tree. I personally am always going to look for the organic alternative. Chemical spray is the last possible solution in my arsenal. I only do that if I absolutely have to do that. One of the most important things to be successful with backyard gardening in general, or really any type of gardening, and here's my philosophy on it: if it's not concrete or lawn, in my landscape it gets mulched. So anything that's bare soil is going to have a mulch on top of it. And mulching does 4 really important things for us. Number 1, it keeps the ground temperature an average of 10 to up to 20 degrees cooler than an unmulched soil. So all of your fine feeder roots can function well at the surface without being damaged during the hot summer months. Number 2, it can make better use of your irrigation water by up to 50%. That's a dollars and cents savings. You're going to save a substantial amount of money on irrigation because you don't have to irrigate as often with a good layer of mulch on the ground. Number 3, it brings back the bioactivity to our soil. It brings back mycorrhizal activity, earthworms, all the beneficial insects and fungi that help trees to feed in a more natural and efficient form. So if we bring back the bioactivity, we can really limit the amount of fertilizer we have to put on. That bioactivity, the decomposition of the mulch, provide most of the basic nutrients that the tree is going to need to survive and do well. And number 4, weed seeds won't germinate through 2 to 4 inch layer of mulch. So any weed seeds that are on the surface, when you put that mulch layer on, they're not coming through. The exception would be not seeds, but rhizaceous grasses, things like Bermuda grass. If you have Bermuda grass and you put a mulch layer on top of it, the Bermuda is coming right through. So before you put mulch on an area that has Bermuda grass, make sure to control the Bermuda grass. So there's 4 great reasons to mulch. Keeping the soil cooler, making better use of your irrigation water, bringing back the bioactivity, keeping weed seeds down, less time weeding the garden. And a good mulch to me is something like this. I'm not looking for really fine little pathway bark. I'm looking for something like this. It's really biodiverse. It's lots of different types of wood products. It's lots of different sizes of wood chunks. It's anything from 6 inches long down to little microchips. That has biodiversity, and that has the ability to breathe well. All those chips and chunks of wood fall at different angles, and the soil can oxygenate well. It doesn't create an anaerobic condition where water stays on the surface and isn't allowed to move freely through the soil. So the soil can oxygenate and breathe well, and you create all kinds of microbes and wonderful organisms that help to benefit the growth of the plants and trees. Since you're mulching now, we talked about fertilizer a little bit, you can really limit the types of fertilizer that you're putting on. Nitrogen becomes my enemy in backyard orchard culture. Nitrogen is great if I want my lawn to look like a professional golf course. Nitrogen gives us green, vigorous color, growth, a lot of power, a lot of flush of growth. I don't want that with my size controlled fruit trees. The more nitrogen I put on, the more pruning I have to do, and in turn, the less development of fruiting wood I'm going to get. So once my trees are established, once I have my mulch layer on, I'm controlling my irrigations to irrigate only when I need to irrigate. At that point, I'm going to choose a fertilizer that's low in nitrogen, high in phosphorus and potash, some trace elements, zinc, iron, manganese, and a humic acid base. And that's what I'm going to feed with from that point on. Enough nitrogen to hold color but not promote vigor. The phosphorus and potash will give me root stability and aid in the development of fruiting and flowering wood. So I'll have more fruit at a younger age, a good stable root system, and less growth that I'm going to have to prune. Here's a really important last comment on backyard orchard culture that most people don't even realize until I bring it up in lectures. This is another thing backyard orchard culture does for us that I think is really important. It allows us to get back to our roots. It allows us to go back to farming. It allows us to get our hands dirty, go out, get some fresh air, get some sunshine, get some exercise, eat some delicious fresh fruit, and do what we really enjoy doing. Let's face it, if you didn't enjoy backyard gardening in general, you wouldn't be watching this video, and more than likely, you'd have a gardener come and do all your work for you and you wouldn't pay any attention to it. But you're different. You enjoy that. You like to go out and work in the yard. You like to spend some time out with Mother Nature and be able to eat fresh fruit and fresh vegetables and smell wonderful fresh roses and look at beautiful flower gardens. So if you didn't enjoy it, you wouldn't be doing it. Now you're getting a great benefit out of it. You're getting health benefit. The fresh air, the sunshine, the exercise, it all makes it worthwhile. It all brings it together. It's a great way to spend quality time with your family, quality time in your yard, and enjoy what you've produced.